New Bombshell evidence proves Aaliyah's death being a setup. Aaliyah was unstoppable in the few short years before her death. Her follow-up album, 1 in a Million, went double platinum. Her Anastasia theme song received an Oscar nomination. She got her first Grammy nod in 1998, and then became a bonafide movie star with Romeo, Must Die, and The Queen of the Damned. However, on August 25, 2001, she wrapped a music video with director Hype Williams in the Bahamas' Acabo Islands, and her team was eager to return to Florida. Aaliyah's plane crash occurred within feet of Marsh Harbor Airport, and Aaliyah died on impact after being thrown 20 feet from the fuselage, a shining star snuffed out at the height of her brilliance. But was her death really a mistake? Before I go into details, click the subscribe button so you never miss a video when it's posted. So, was her death really a mistake? Still, 2 decades later, an air of mystery surrounds what went so tragically wrong on August 25, 2001, when an hour-long flight from the sandy, beachy shores of the Acabo Islands to Miami claimed the lives of the 22-year-old superstar, Aaliyah D. Houghton, and 8 others. And while her family and fans were still processing the sudden loss, and an investigation into the crash was barely underway, Aaliyah's death was quickly eclipsed by another tragedy, September 11th. Do you remember her death? I was so sad when it happened. In the years since, there have been few explanations for why the plane was ever allowed off the ground in the first place. Arguments had broken out between Aaliyah's entourage and the pilot over the plane being overweight. After the crash, it was quickly confirmed that the small twin-engine plane exceeded its maximum weight by several hundred pounds. Plus, the weight was not evenly distributed, which would have made the plane harder to control once it got into the air. I wished she had emptied that plane. The last significant update came in 2002, when a toxicology report found that the inexperienced pilot had cocaine and alcohol in his system. Now that is suspicious. It never quite added up to the author and acclaimed music journalist Kathy Iandoli. Why would Aaliyah, a known anxious flyer, be so insistent on getting on this small plane when it was clearly overloaded with baggage, especially when there was a chartered plane set to pick her up the next day? But Iandoli stumbled across what she believes is the final piece of the puzzle in the process of researching and writing her upcoming book, Baby Girl, better known as Aaliyah, which has given her long-needed closure about the singer's death. Let's get into that. It came from a man in the Abaco Islands named Kingsley Russell, whose family ran a taxi and hospitality business in the area. Shortly after the death of Kobe Bryant in February 2020, Russell made a since-deleted YouTube video describing how the helicopter crash was triggering because it reminded him of the day he watched Aaliyah being taken on board the fatal flight while she was asleep, knocked out by a pill that a member of her team had given her. Minutes after he saw her entourage carrying a sleeping Aaliyah onto the plane, despite her previous protests about boarding it, Russell says he remembers hearing the unforgettable sound of the aircraft crashing into the ground. I cannot imagine what that sounds like. Russell's account was a bomb to Iandoli, who for years struggled to accept the fact that Aaliyah willingly risked her safety and her team's just to make it back to Miami that Saturday night. I remember when Aaliyah passed away. I was really upset, Iandoli says. The story kept saying that she was adamant about getting on the plane. I was almost upset with her. Why did you want to get on that plane so badly? I remember wrestling with this, being like, well, she wanted to get back to Damon Dash. She wanted to be with her team, and who wouldn't want their stuff with them? And learning that she did not want to get on that plane, for someone like myself and so many other people, I think that's closure for us. She adds, It's an unfortunate closure, but I needed to hear that she didn't want to get on that plane. I needed to know that. The person who I thought had the most common sense in the world had common sense to not get on the plane. The fact that she was so adamant, staying in the cab, refusing, these are things we never knew. Ayandoli slid into Russell's YouTube private messages, saying she was working on a book about Aaliyah and asked if he would be willing to chat. Russell told Ayandoli that he had received a handful of messages, but was only interested in speaking to her because Aaliyah had told him during that final journey to the airport, "If you want to do anything, be an author." I'm happy he's willing to share what he knows. Feeling he was destined to talk to Ayandoli, Russell began sharing a story that he had long been advised to keep to himself. Russell had been 13 in 2001 and wound up being in Aaliyah's orbit by working as her team's baggage carrier, securing the tipped job by his aunt, Annie Russell, who was handling the team's transportation and scouting locations for filming. Annie Russell gave testimony at the coroner's inquest into Aaliyah's death in 2003, citing concerns of the team having too much video equipment to take on the plane. Kingsley's mother was Aaliyah's driver during her time on the island, which allowed Russell to chat with her on their way to the airport. I'd love to talk to Aaliyah too. Already experiencing a 2-hour delay due to the plane's late arrival, Russell claimed that Aaliyah grew even more flustered when she finally saw the plane and refused to board it. At the same time, the pilot was insisting that the plane would be too heavy with 8 passengers, including Aaliyah's 300-pound bodyguard, and all of their luggage and video equipment. The airport staff and Aaliyah had the common sense that the plane was overweight. Russell is quoted in the book. Pushing back against her team, Aaliyah climbed into the taxi van complaining of a headache and said she was going to take a quick nap. Meanwhile, her camp continued to try and convince the pilot to fly them with all their luggage, according to Russell. The pilot should have known better. Eventually, Russell said a member of Aaliyah's team came to check on her, and the singer reiterated that she did not want to get on the tiny plane, and that she had a headache. It was then, Russell claimed, that the team member produced a pill, which Aaliyah took and fell into a deep sleep, which she remained in when the pilot finally agreed to fly the group back to Florida. So, the plot thickens. They took her out of the van. She didn't even know she was getting boarded on a plane, Russell said. She went on the airplane asleep. When Aaliyah's body was recovered nearly 20 feet away from the wreckage, she was still strapped into her seat, slumped to the left with her 5-foot 7-inch frame folded over, according to the book. An autopsy report concluded that her survival was unthinkable, citing her extensive burns and major head trauma. For Ayandoli, it's a bittersweet revelation that Aaliyah was allegedly knocked out when she was taken on board the plane, admitting that she was unsure if she even wanted to include the pill detail in her book. She ultimately decided it fit into the story that I think debunked something that we had been believing for all this time. The only thing I've taken with me is that after 20 years, I can finally say that Aaliyah didn't want to get on the plane, she says. That makes me feel a little better, but not much. This didn't have to happen. She should still be here, and I think that's the saddest part about it. While this theory exists, others are there screaming in our faces. Was Aaliyah's death due to a budding case against R. Kelly? Could we believe that R. Kelly silenced Aaliyah and her family through a non-disclosure agreement following his marriage and subsequent annulment to the then 15-year-old singer? Surviving R. Kelly utilizes Aaliyah's story to spotlight her as a victim of R. Kelly, after years in the media and music industry scandalizing her marriage to the now convicted singer in the 90s. Aaliyah's debut album in 1994 was titled Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, and was recorded when she was 14 years old. R. Kelly, who was Aaliyah's mentor and first introduced to her by her uncle, music executive and manager Barry Hankerson, was a lead songwriter and producer of the album. What message were these people trying to send? At the time the album was released, rumors circulated that there was a relationship between the 15-year-old Aaliyah and the 27-year-old R. Kelly. The pair secretly married in August 1994. Aaliyah was 15 at the time, but the marriage certificate falsified her age as 18. I might throw up. However, the marriage was annulled by Aaliyah's parents in February 1995. In Surviving R. Kelly, on-camera interviews with individuals from R. Kelly's camp who were in the room when the duo wed expressed their regret over the marriage. Individuals who are close to both R. Kelly and Aaliyah share new details about the legal argument that was allegedly forged between R. Kelly and Aaliyah's family. So her family sold her out? Members of Aaliyah's family declined to comment to the producers of Surviving R. Kelly, per a statement that aired as part of the Lifetime docuseries. A childhood friend of R. Kelly and his former security, Jem Pratt, appears in Surviving R. Kelly and claims that Aaliyah's father was furious over the marriage and forced the annulment. Very understandable. Pratt alleges that Aaliyah's family had a contractual agreement with R. Kelly that stated they wouldn't press charges against him for the illegal marriage after it was annulled. In turn, R. Kelly sold the rights to his first 3 albums to Aaliyah's family, giving them a financial incentive. Yep, sold her out for money. Her dad didn't want her anywhere near him, Pratt says in the docuseries. Various on-camera guests in Surviving R. Kelly described the marriage as a way to get R. Kelly to avoid jail time for statutory rape of a minor. The NDA was brought up in R. Kelly's New York trial in 2022, but did not receive widespread coverage. The use of NDAs has become a hot-button issue in sexual harassment cases, particularly in the workplace, highlighting an imbalance of power with the perpetrator or corporations silencing victims through forced legal documents. Prior to R. Kelly's trial, journalist Jim D3ath, the reporter who first broke news of R. Kelly's sexual abuse more than 2 decades ago, uncovered the NDA that R. Kelly used against Aaliyah. A few years ago, D3ath spoke about the documents that were leaked to him, stating in an interview that the annulment and Aaliyah's legal claim against R. Kelly had been sealed. "It's a harrowing document," he said, a non-disclosure agreement on both her part and Kelly's, vowing not to pursue further legal claims for physical abuse. So it wasn't just an underage sexual relationship. He hit her, allegedly, according to that court document. I don't think I'd like to know the content of this agreement. Speaking to Variety about the final installment of Surviving R. Kelly, executive producer Jesse Daniels said that the producing team was careful not to exploit Aaliyah in the docuseries and hoped to highlight the abuse she tragically endured by R. Kelly when she was a teenager. I'm happy that they were sensitive to the situation. We have had a lot of conversations about how to tell Aaliyah's story, every time because we really want to be respectful of her legacy. But what she went through, we can't turn our backs on, said Daniels. Do you think R. Kelly had anything to do with her death? Anyways, let's wrap up. Do you think Aaliyah's death was a mere accident? What theory do you believe as being the cause of her death? Tell us below. That's it for today, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.